Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Liam Dann, New Zealand Herald Business Editor at Large. This is a podcast where we talk to New Zealanders about money and how it has shaped their lives. We're not going to tell you how to get rich. We're not going to pick the next interest rate move. But we are going to get you thinking about your relationship with money and what it really means to you. With me today, I have broadcasting legend Matt Heath, pioneer of comedy stunt-based TV with Back of the Y, comedy metal with his band Deja Voodoo, and more lately, the alternative commentary collective, and of course, Radio Hauraki Breakfast with Jeremy Wells. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. I thought I'd throw you a curly question to start with. What's your favourite song about money?
Well, it'd have to be Mo Money, Mo Problems by Notorious B.I.G.
Brilliant, yeah.
Based on the I'm Coming Out song by Diana Ross. It's a great song.
It's kind of philosophically deep about money. Like, you know, the more you got, the more you got to worry about it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, money doesn't solve all your problems. You know, if you think money's going to buy you happiness, then it does to a certain extent. I think up to about 150 grand, and then after that, who knows? Yeah,
that's kind of a theme of this podcast. I think trying to get to grips with how much we need to care about money, where we need to care more, where maybe we need to care less. But maybe if I can jump back to the beginning, do you have an earliest memory of money in your life? Do you remember the first time you held money?
You know what? I don't really. It's actually kind of a strange thing for me because my family, and I notice this when I run into other people, my family was a very intellectual family, so they were all university people.
Yep.
And so money was kind of, we never had any money training or any talk about money in our house. And, you know, I think probably the first time money would be going to, I know what it was. Yeah. I think the first time I ever dealt with money was paying for Monday lunches at Māori Hill Primary School. You'd bring some money together and you'd get like a hot dog.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time I ever remember handing anyone money.
So you couldn't lose, you had to look after it.
Yeah, you had to look after it. I used to love those hot dogs with tomato sauce and the white death buns.
How about pocket money? Did you get pocket money?
I actually, I sort of didn't. And then when I was 13, my parents made this decision that they were just going to give me the amount of money. They worked out, in the way my parents worked out things, that how much money it cost a year for me in terms of school uniforms and everything. And then they just gave me that money so I had to buy my own clothes and buy my own stuff.
Yeah.
And just after no training and money at all, suddenly 13, you got this much money a week, which is more money a week than my friends had. And so I just blew it all. Didn't really sort of have proper school uniform. And, just the first month or so I was eating heaps at the tuck shop and then having nothing, and then every month would come through I'd buy a CD.
Sort of good tough love kind of.
It was, and actually really taught me to save money because I went through some hard periods, even 13. I mean, they were never going to let me starve. There was always food in the microwave, but
So when you had spare money, like things that you wanted to buy, did you have to save up for stuff, or like you mentioned, music's a big part of your life? So was it going on CDs and things? Yeah. I was just blowing it all on CDs, which seems crazy now in the Spotify, iHeartRadio age. But it was just buying CDs, which weren't, like when I was a kid, they was expensive. They were like $33. Yeah. I mean, it's about it really hasn't changed.
No, it didn't.
In nominal terms, how much it costs to buy a CD?
No, it didn't change at all.
If anyone buys a CD, records are about $40-50. So it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Okay. So I guess from there you kind of like you get more autonomy with money.
Yeah.
You went to you're growing up in Dunedin, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Otago University, was that?
Yep, went to Otago University to study law, and then because I'd sort of done quite well at school, and as I say, my family were a university family. My dad was a professor at Otago University, so I thought I'd go to university, and so I thought I'd sort of virtue signal to my dad that I was going to do law. Because it sounded like the kind of thing you do, like you do law, or become a doctor.
Law equals success, right?
Yeah, that's right, or become a doctor if you're going to do it like my dad was. But I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor, and then it turns out I wasn't quite smart enough to do law or engaged enough.
Yeah, well, you got to care about a pretty dry lot of language. Like you're imagining being in an amazing courtroom.
Yeah,
and it's not that, right? When you
I find the idea of it quite interesting now. Actually, probably would have been looking back, and it kind of feels like a missed opportunity in a way. But ended up with a degree in anthropology by the time I came out of it, which is I never even got out of the packet. It's still in the. It got sent to me. I didn't turn up to graduation.
So looking at the kind of career path you ended up on, money. This is a stupid question, really. Yeah. Money wasn't a big motivation initially, or going into it.
No, it wasn't at all. In fact, I remember thinking I'd never earn money. I remember when signing up for my student loan, I was like, I'll never pay this back. I'll never earn any money. It was never really a big part of my life. Until it was, and then it really was. Yeah. And about the time I had my first child, I was like, oh, now suddenly money seems to be quite an important thing. I'm going to get really focused on that.
Yeah. So how old are you? What years are you at university there?
So I was at university from 92.
Yeah.
And then embarrassingly long.
Yeah.
So I think it took 4 years to get my anthropology degree.
Well, one of the left field questions I had was Grant Robertson at university with you? Do you remember?
Yes, he was. I was friends with Grant Robertson at university, but he would have been finishing.
Yeah, he'd have been a couple.
But he actually managed my band.
Right.
My band when I was at high school. So I was in a band called Kid Eternity, and Grant Robertson, the finance minister, was the manager of our band. He was he was very famous in Dunedin. He was kind of one of those people that you know is going to succeed. It was quite strange. And so he'd come to our parties and stuff, and it would be quite cool because you got Grant Robertson, who would be the OUSA president.
Yeah.
And he would be he just had this air of success about him.
Yeah. And it could have been a music label or something at that point. He was a music obsessed.
He was obsessed about music, and you'd often see him at the front of gigs holding his glasses on while he danced. And he managed our band. And whenever I interview him on our radio show, he always says, "You still owe me $200 from a tour to Wellington where you borrowed some money from the band Kitty." So he doesn't forget things like that. So maybe he was destined to be a finance minister, although he's probably dealing with figures slightly more than the touring budget of Kid Eternity in the early 90s.
So there's touring with a band and all that sort of stuff might be there, but another question I like to ask guests on the show is, what's the poorest you've ever been?
I remember when the mother of my children and we got together, and I'd sort of just come back from England, I think, so this was about 2000, and I had no money at all.
Right.
We had no money at all, and we were actually really happy. It was actually fantastic. But I remember us getting together 20-cent pieces to get fish and chips for dinner.
Yeah.
But I don't actually look at that as a bad time. It was kind of, we look back at that as kind of cool. It was like we had nothing. We didn't have the kids, so it was actually fine for us to be completely poor. We moved back and we moved into her mum's basement, and we were scraping up cents to get together because our royalties had sort of dried up. I guess. Actually, no, this would have been, that would have been 2003, actually, now I think about it.
So this was after some success with Back of the Y?
Yeah, so we went over to England on the back of that, and just didn't make any great financial decisions.
No, but I mean, it became a pop culture phenomenon.
Yeah, it did, and then actually DVD royalties started coming in after that, and then her band royalties started coming in because she had a number one record, and then we ended up being quite well off for a while.
So what band was that?
She was bass player from LMNOP.
Oh, cool.
And so they were starting to do quite well. And so then we had it. Actually, after that, we lived a life of luxury for about a year on sort of doing very little and living off royalties.
Yeah. Well, I guess, so you go from sort of being poor to having a bit of money and then enjoying it. At that point, are the things that you indulged, like, purchases that you made that you
my parents had this real thing about not buying things that you couldn't afford. So I never really, I didn't really have anything. And in fact, Lani talks about when she first met me, I had a suitcase. I lived out of a suitcase, and that was about it. And I had a suitcase and a mirror, she reckoned, that I travelled around with. And so I never really had this desire for things. I mean, when you look at my mortgage now, that doesn't make much sense. But I never had this sort of real desire for objects. It was quite, I don't know why that was, and I never had a really decent car.
Yeah.
It was.
So it's more about doing stuff. Money being a means to doing stuff.
Going overseas and traveling and stuff. And we'd invest a lot of stuff into our into our things that we did, like when we were making Back of the Y and stuff. I worked as a warehouse manager, but all that stuff was being funneled into what we were filming before we got on TV with our series. Paying for fake blood and whatever costumes we were going to do for our stuff, cameras, paying off video cameras that would get broken the first time you used them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So Auckland house mortgages aside, you've never been big on debt, never got yourself racked up. And
yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day. I was always really concerned about that, and I always prided myself on not getting into overdraft or credit card debt. It was about the only thing my parents taught me, which was interesting because I'm looking back now. They said never go into debt, but obviously they had this house that they must have been paying off. But I thought that it sort of stuck with me. But now then I look at my bank account now and I go, well, I've definitely found some debt. I found some debt later on.
Yeah, I mean, look at that stage of your life. It sounds like, like a lot of us. I mean, it wasn't a factor thinking about retirement savings.
No,
and that kind of stuff.
And I remember actually the drummer of Lani's band said she got a payout. She said, you guys should buy a house now with this. You should invest in a house, right? And we're like, housing market is going to crash. I'm not spending $400,000 on a Greyland villa. Are you insane? That's not going to.
I remember that exactly. Thinking, oh my god,
I read too much about it.
These Greyland villas are $400,000. I'll never own one.
Yeah, it was a thing like that because if you read a lot about it, it seemed ridiculous, but actually some people that didn't think about it as much just jumped in there and then
just doing stuff. I mean, well, it seems to be that there's some people who handle money maybe the way that you've sort of handled making stuff, making I don't know, like your whole career is across a whole bunch of genres, but you've been passionate about doing that in the way that some people just sort of the magic is in making the money all add up and doing that.
That's something I didn't really understand the fun of it, and I get into it now because I sort of read a lot around finance and money and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of the whole world, and I think that's what you don't understand. It sounds very boring in numbers when you're younger, but then you realise that that is the world. The economy is everything, and it's every political thing. It's it's countries, it's politics, it's money, it's culture. It all flies into this one thing. Yeah, and if people get that early and understand the excitement of it and what it actually means, then if you do that right through your 20s and 30s, and you probably come out the other end with a bit of cash or in jail.
Was there is there a point at which you started to shift your thinking around actually a moment where you went, this is interesting, and maybe if I learn a bit about it I can get a bit more financial stability in my life?
Well, I used to always run our businesses as companies, there was Back of the Wire Limited and Deja Vu Limited, and I'd run those, but just sort of money coming in, money coming out. It wasn't like you're making plans to go to the future. And then when I had my first son came along, I started thinking about these things quite seriously.
Suddenly makes it a bit heavier.
Yeah, and then so that's when I not long after that started Vinewood Motion Graphics, which is my motion graphics company that rocks along, and then so I've always sort of run these little companies.
Okay. Tell me a bit more about that, because I didn't know about that. And it's obviously like you've got a very public face with the real fun stuff, but there's obviously like some more serious stuff going on as well. Yeah,
Vinewood Motion Graphics is a pretty fun company as well, but it's just making animations, 3D animations.
So fun's kind of a bit of a bottom line, it seems like, in your career path.
Yeah, well, it was me and a guy from Back of the Wire, and we used to do these little graphics that were terrible graphics and then he went off and he studied graphics, and he went to London, and he did really well, worked for a bunch of big companies, and when he came back we started this company and made a lot of graphics for ads and stuff, and then we made a short film called Fire in Cardboard City in the background while we were doing that. It took us about 5 years, and then that did really well overseas. And won a bunch of awards, won award at Tribeca and LA Film Festival and stuff, and then we spun that off into a TV series. So basically we've been making these cardboard animations for the last 3 years, and so that's become by far the bulk of our business. And now we're just making another show called Goodbye AI. So they're kids television. So we moved we moved to kids television, and we won the best kids TV show at the awards last year. And so that's sort of been the way we've gone, possibly to the detriment of our making advertising. So
Yeah, well, but again, that's a choice that a lot of people in creative industries have to make. Is the less interesting something is, the more people are prepared to pay you for it. Almost, it's like there's a sliding scale. That if you could be doing some really, I don't want to slag off banks, but if you're doing graphics for a bank ad, you're going to get paid a lot more money than doing something like that.
Well, the best example of that is bands, right? So bands, when they're young, they just want to go and play shows and enjoy the fame and concentrate on the music, and you'll often have management and record company that are really concentrated on money, and that's why often people can have quite successful careers and end up with no cash, because that's not where their focus is. Their focus is you can sell them on the next gig, you can sell them on the next recording the next album, and they just don't think about the money at all. you know.
Yeah. So beyond the business side, when you think about things, do you, without getting into personal areas, but have you learned to structure things in this kind of way that good personal finance advisors and proper podcasts would suggest doing it and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I'm very focused on getting my little black box from the accountant at the end of the year. I feel, I feel that's important, and they all pile up across everything. So I'm very, very focused on that, and I love that feeling of it all being completely sorted out, all the tax paid, it's all sorted, and that's all great. I love that feeling, and also I am a big believer in paying down debt. So I set up automatic, massively, pay our mortgage quickly. Yeah. I believe in that kind of thing as well.
There's a weird sort of satisfaction to watching that tick down. It's almost like, you're a cricket fan, obviously, watching a slow game of Test cricket, but there's someone's heading to a target or something like that. Yeah,
I don't even mind. I actually quite enjoy coding for the coding my taxes for the accountant. Like I find that quite satisfying, coding and then doing a little mystery investigation into whether one of my business, one of the people that work for the company did actually was that really were you really taking people out? Because that looks like you've gone up to the bar 17 times in small increments. So, that doesn't actually go on the entertainment part of it.
Yeah.
That goes on your personal, that goes on your drawings, mate.
Yeah. I mean, my hunch is talking to some very rich people. I talked to Graham Hart years ago. And, you wonder about the number of zeros and how he can even use the money. And I got the sense that he no longer cares about the money. It is that sense of doing the perfect business deal and putting it all together and having it all fit. And that's the kind of personality that just wants...
It would have to be, wouldn't it? Because if your focus was...
Apart from the boats, maybe. He's got these, a fairly indulgent hobby in his boats. But,
But I mean, it would have to be, wouldn't it? You'd have to have a joy in it.
Yeah.
Because you more than have the opportunity to stop.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. I mean, and in that sense of what do? You get comfortable enough to do nothing. Well, there's no way to live a life, right? So
yeah, that's right. I mean, that's a funny thing. I think it was Quentin Tarantino was talking about, how he was looking forward to finishing his 10 movies so he could sit by the pool and just relax. And it's like, well, no, you'll last 15 seconds by the pool because what you love is your work. There's someone else saying that this idea that people have in their head that they'll retire and they'll go and sit on the beach and they'll order a pina colada, and they'll sit there and drink it, and they will be bored before the end of the pina colada.
Luckily, my 20s was loose enough, and I had periods of 6 months on the dole, long enough to know that I can't do that for a long time. Like a couple of weeks doing nothing, and it's great, and then you start to go mad. I love the idea of being the dude from Big Lebowski, but I just can't maintain it long term.
Yeah, I think there's mental health issues in that. I think we need to achieve things. I was actually telling this to my son the other day that achievement, because he did really well at school this year and it was hard work, and he was saying, God, it feels good. And I said, well, that's the lesson for life. When you work and then take a break, that's when the break feels good. When you can't take a break from a break. That's that's when it feels great, when you finish something and then you stop and you feel that sense of achievement, which is what I get from just on a very basic, because I was doing it last night, to get ahead of things, just coding, just getting that official, have coded everything in your Xero account. Yeah. It's like, even that is enough of a reward for me to then go off and enjoy the next thing I do.
It's like completing a Rubik's Cube or something.
Yeah. That's like any kind of achievement is good for mental health. And sitting on the beach in your retirement, well, you're going to have to find a hobby. You're going to have to start fixing the lawns at the bowling club or something like my dad does.
And so the anthropology degree, do you think that's helped you? Because it's pretty broad, and I've got a bit of vested. I did a sociology degree, so similar sort of thing, really. Slightly just not knowing what to do.
I think in that you have to learn to write essays, and you have to learn to structure your thoughts. And I also did a bit of philosophy, and I did this paper a couple of years of logic. Yeah, and that, I think that's been really, really important to me, because I find logic quite important, and logically putting together arguments and that kind of stuff. And I loved the university experience, and I met so many great people there. So I think it was worth it for that. I mean, ran up quite a debt. But I actually think it was definitely worth it. And I think, because in some ways my degree was like one of those old school ones you read from like 1880, where you went and you had it for the experience. It was actually literally a Bachelor of the Arts kind of situation. So I think I did learn a lot from it, and I've got a massive interest in, more of an interest in that now than I did then, anthropology, all that, that sort of area of things.
And this might be, but you've got parts of your career are quite famous for celebrating bogan culture.
Yeah.
And, I just wondered about, how much, thought you'd put into how New Zealanders sort of in that world think about money and
yeah.
In fact, the one I was going to mention was, I think it's a Deja Voodoo song, and I thought it was just a genius lyric. I'd give you one of my beers, but I've only got 6.
Yeah, well, that was a cross between two things. That one, it was like my sister used to always say to me when we were kids, I would give you, because the next line is, I would give you one, but I don't like to share.
Yeah,
and that was a line that my sister used to say to me, my little sister. It's like, oh, I'd love to give you a bite.
And also, you've only got 6. You might not be quite drunk enough if you've only got
6. Yeah. It was a stupid angle. It was interesting with that sort of bogan culture thing, because we sort of came from quite a different world than that. So it was sort of a parody of bogan culture. So we were enjoying it, but also from the outside saying this. But then a lot of people I worked with got confused and actually thought they were bogans.
Yeah.
And I got a little bit confused by it for a while, and then sort of hang on, like, I'm son of a university professor. I'm not really a bogan here. I'm sort of like that sort of tradition of comedy.
You're going to get accused of cultural appropriation.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. And so I was really liked, and in a way I was sort of jealous of bogan culture as a kid, because it just seemed really fun.
Yeah.
The cars, the drinking, the parties around your house,
AC/DC,
the music, all that kind of stuff seemed like a really fun compared to my life, which was quite sort of, my parents were very sort of, well behaved.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was sort of but yeah, I think there is, the bogan culture in New Zealand can lead to, a lot of success, if people focus on, but I think there's the same pitfalls for anyone, right? Like, if you work hard and you make sensible decisions as a bogan, you can be very successful. You know what I mean?
Especially if you know how to do up a house in Auckland now. The tradies are all
exactly
worth the fortune.
So it's the same thing, but you can also, if you live the bogan culture too much, then you're not going to get anywhere, and you're going to become pathetic.
Yeah,
and that's the same with every part of life. Whatever part of life.
That's right. Sort of finding that something to get your head around the idea of needing to be motivated. The reason for doing something. Well,
you see those guys that are just really motivated by, motorbikes or cars or whatever, and really work on it and really concentrate on it. Or, I'm really jealous of people that can build houses and do that kind of stuff. Like I've got brothers-in-law that can just put some stairs into their house. Like, so they've bought this house, and then you go around 2 months later and they've installed stairs into the basement, and now the basement's this awesome room with a bathroom, and you're like, that to me is one of the most impressive things in the world. I can't even comprehend it.
And again, it will be that satisfaction, like you're doing the books, of just having done something so solid and absolute, you can say it's completed. It's I've got this garage that I really wanted to, I like the idea of turning this garage in our yard into like sealing it and turning it into like a room. And I just go and look at it and I go, well, how would you, where would you start? Like, how would you start doing that? And then I start going, well, maybe we'll throw that on top of the mortgage and get someone to come and do it. All right. Well, so I guess looking forward from here, so you get yourself to a point where you're financially stable. Yep. Are the things you need or want to achieve from there? Like, in terms of, do you have great ambitions to things you want to purchase in life? I don't know if there's things I want to purchase in life that I've got great ambitions about. I think there's things I really want to do in terms of Vinewood, my company. We've got these plans, and we're always every day taking steps towards that. Talking to people. Overseas, there's always a new idea of doing things, and sometimes you wonder if that's a realistic way to spend your time. But we get enough successes that it keeps going. Like I'm, doing my radio show with Jeremy. That's a great thing, because I think like any work is like you're sort of like a pack, and you're following like a. It's almost like there's something you're chasing that's sort of unachievable. You're always moving forward. You've always got these plans and schemes to move forward as a group. And I like working with a group of people, having ideas and trying to achieve these kind of things. So I think most of my aspirations are in that area. I get to live a pretty good life. So there's not too much. I mean, I don't really feel like buying a boat.
I prefer to go out on other friends' boats or a charter every now and then. And I don't know. Sometimes I go to the beach and I don't have a batch. I look at a batch and go, but wouldn't I just have to be worried about mowing the lawns all the time?
Yeah.
When I can just rent a batch, when I need it. So I don't know. I've got a lot of aspirations for my kids, I spend a lot of time thinking about the right thing to do with them.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of joy out of them going through life and their little successes and helping with their failures. That's a big motivation for me.
Well, look, I'll finish up by then asking, first of all, doing the thing where we say that this is not a financial advice podcast, and please, don't take anything too literally from this podcast. That should be obvious for my friends at the FMA. But if you were thinking broad advice for, that you might give your kids, but you might give friends if they were, a bit younger or wanting to get on top of things around money, but is there a sort of a philosophy you'd share?
I reckon, and this probably is not necessarily the right philosophy in the current environment, but I think paying down your debt, I think really taking pleasure in paying down your debt and not immediately seeing paying down your debt an opportunity to raise your debt. And I think there's good and bad debt. I mean, like you can invest in a house, and you've got to decide whether your holiday is good debt or bad debt. How you're going to feel about paying off your, $25,000 holiday as opposed to $25,000 invested in something in your life. And that sounds like a pretty boring way to look at things, but I think, I was just looking at our mortgage the other day and I found a great amount of pride in how much I'd managed to pay down. And I think that sounds boring because people right now are saying borrow. Now's the time to borrow. I mean, there's people, I'm talking to people that are borrowing money and putting it in the stock market, which is something that I could never do. That would be against the fabric of
just the
myself.
high risk nature of it.
Yeah, the high risk. To me, even the stock market's going up 30% a year in some ways. I just feel like borrowing to the stock market is one.
I'm the same, and same with like getting a second, third house. And I've been having this debate with people that everyone says now is a great time to borrow money. I borrowed for the house when the mortgage rates were about 10%.
Yeah,
and I've only had good news all the way through. So borrowing now, it's actually, which way is it going to go? Things go up.
I was arguing with someone the other day, and I said paying off debt when mortgage rates is great as well. God, it sounds boring me saying it out loud, but I think that's a good time to pay off debt because you are paying off more debt. As a percentage of the base. So that's good. But then other people will borrow a crap load of money and take massive wild risks, and it really, really pays off for them. And they're probably laughing at me for thinking about paying down debt.
One of the best bits of advice I've ever had is just, you have to, it has to pass the sleep at night test. It has to be the right risk for you. But I wonder if that's, paying down debt, it's about the freedom of not being in debt, right?
Yeah.
So being
Well, I remember when I paid signed the mortgage for my house and thinking buying a house in Mount Eden and Dunedin. I'm going back to where I came from, Mount Eden. And my hand was shaking. I was like, "This is," and then that was actually the best decision I've ever made. Like buying that house turned out at a dumb luck. I thought this was terrifying signing off this, but but ended up being a great decision. So I'm glad I took that risk.
I'm glad my wife made me.
I know, because I was actually arguing for the longest time with Lani, saying it's gonna crash. It's gonna crash. So if anything, I'm a pessimist when it comes to finances, but I would say there is a pleasure in paying down debt.
All right. Well, that's a great theme and a great place probably to leave it. So look, thanks for being here, Matt. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with the listeners. And
well, thanks for having me.
Good one. Thanks for listening. If you've got feedback, drop me a line at liam.dan@nzherald.co.nz. And if you want to hear more of these, please subscribe at iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.